What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Hana Yori Dango Returns, which is to say the second season of Hana Yori Dango, and we're going to listen to a track that is called Fresh Leaves, and it's one of the handful of tunes in this soundtrack that's written in English. And fair to say, there's a different version of it on here, meaning this is the full orchestral or symphonic style version, but there's also a piano version, so we'll listen to that at some point, though I think I'm going to do another reaction to this soundtrack in the same batch, but not the piano version. We'll keep that one for next time. But yes, Fresh Leaves, it has a similar feeling as one or two of the tracks in the first season soundtrack, meaning it's tender, it's sweet, but maybe there's a bit of melancholy in there too, so I feel like it fits the emotional atmosphere of the whole show, but certainly of season 2, which I mentioned both in my watch-alongs for Hana Yori Dango. I'll try to put a link to both the first season, or I guess it's all, I've been doing it all in one collection, so yeah, I'll put a link to my Patreon watch-along of Hana Yori Dango in the description. But the whole show in general, and specifically season 2, has this really compelling mixture of comedy, sweet romance, but also melancholy and, angsty kind of feelings, so I think it's a good amalgamation of some different feelings and tones over the course of the whole show, especially season 2. And yeah, this one has that dynamic perfectly, meaning there's some really elegant and soft and sweet parts of it, but there's some strokes along the way that give you this like you can feel the heartache or the difficulties that come with heavy emotions, so I think it's a very fitting track for the soundtrack specifically for season 2. Let's give it a listen. This is Fresh Leaves from the Hana Yori Dango Returns, or the second season of Hana Yori Dango soundtrack. And it's, what is his name again? I'm trying to remember the name. It's like Yamashita. Yeah, Yamashita Kousuke is the name of the composer. And this is, as I said, Fresh Leaves. What a beautiful little tune. So yeah, there's obviously a piano featuring very prominently in this one, though I suppose it'd be most accurate to say this normal version of Fresh Leaves is sort of like a piano concerto, although it alternatively could be like a violin or a flute concerto. I think there's all those instruments that provide crucial ingredients, and I think there's maybe even a xylophone at the end. But yes, the other version, the piano version, is like a piano sonata. I think it's a piano by itself doing most of the parts that you hear here, and thus it has a smaller, more intimate feel. But yeah, as I said, there's a very nuanced emotional tone to this one. It's gentle, it's sweet, but there's also maybe a bit of melancholy, perhaps even a touch of sadness along the way. I do love that section, maybe like a minute or so in, when it minimizes a bit and there's that really tender piano line that then brings us into the next section. I think that's my favorite part, and of course, as someone who's seen the show, I'm thinking of the characters and even a few moments here and there where it plays. It is specific to season 2. I don't think this track is in season 1, whereas there are some tunes from season 1 that are also carried over. But yes, it's just an excellent representation of the type of emotions that are in Hana Yori Dango. Now, again, the soundtracks for both season 1 and season 2, and the film also, but they have, funny and like lighter tracks that are representative of the comedy and the, silliness that's in some of the moments and some of the scenes. But as to the emotional flavor of Hana Yori Dango, especially Hana Yori Dango Returns, I think this is a perfect example. So shout out to Yamashita Kousuke, shout out to all those who've checked out any of the Hana Yori Dango watch-alongs on my Patreon. Again, I'll put a link for the collection in the description here in case you haven't seen, because there's been a few people who've commented over the last 2.5 years as I've done Hana Yori Dango music reactions, audio reactions here on YouTube, that weren't necessarily following my channel but found it because they're fond of Hana Yori Dango, and a couple folks commented oh wow, I didn't know people were still watching or talking about this show. So if you're one of those people, check out over on my Patreon the link that I provide, because I've done a watch along. I think I've gone through episodes, all the ones from season 1, and I think the first 4 of season 2 are Hana Yori Dango Returns. Now, full disclosure, if you are newer here, I will say I've known that show for 20 years now, but it had been several years before I started doing this watch-along, so it's been not only very fun to go back to it again, because it's a classic and I'll watch it any time, but there's been some scenes and some moments along the way where it's oh, I didn't even remember this, so it's been a bit fresh for me as well, fresh leaves even. So yes, as I said, shout out to Yamashita Kousuke. Let me know what you think of the track, and I will see you next time. Peace.